This is Almir. Another day, another episode of Commuting with a Software Engineer. I'm gonna say another beautiful morning here in Orange County. It is not sunny yet, but to me it's still beautiful. I'm gonna keep saying beautiful morning, but pretty much it's the same day every day. I don't even need to watch the weather forecast. But let's get back to software engineering, what this series is all about. Today's topic is microservices and 25 things that you need to do in order to achieve the enterprise level of microservices. Okay, I'm looking at my notes on my phone, so I parked on the side of the road. It's time. Let's look at the 25 things to achieve enterprise level of microservices. Number one thing when you're doing microservices architecture, you need the architecture diagram representing the overall view and interaction between each family of microservices. So let's assume every team or every squad owns a group or family of microservices. Now, as in the solutions architect role, in order to understand the full picture, you have to draw a diagram of overall architecture and family of microservices interacting with each other and how those microservices fit in the overall customer flow. So you basically do a diagram, happy path diagram of a customer flow, and then you overlay it with microservice names or APIs that are called on each page. Number two, you need to define the service names, the boundaries, and API definition standards. So the service names, you have to have some standard around the service names and how APIs are called. Obviously, you can decide on using plural for your microservices or APIs. You can do singular, for example, if you have a service customer's microservice, maybe your API could be /API/customers, or you could agree that it could be all singular /API/customer. But you have to clearly define the boundaries of your services. So how do you define the boundaries of a microservice? Microservice is supposed to be a single purpose. What does that mean? If you force yourself to write down a definition of what your microservice does, and if your sentence is too long, or if you're using a lot of ands and ors and ifs in your sentence, that means your microservice is doing too much. For example, you could have a customer's microservice, or an API. If I just say a customer's microservice is a service that is used to create, read, update, and delete a customer, that's the definition of a microservice. But if I say, this customer's microservice is used to create, update, delete, and read a customer, but also you can if somebody else sends you a certain piece of information, you'll be doing X, Y, and Z, or if somebody sends you another piece of information, you're doing A, B, and C, then in that case, it's not a microservice. It's doing many more things. So it has more than one purpose. So that's what I meant by number two. Clearly define the service names, the boundaries of these microservices, and the API definitions. So number three, make sure you have a concept of application config, defining your microservice or your service. What is an application config? In that application config for your microservice, you define what resources your service needs. For example, your service may need a database, may need a cache cluster, or it may need some type of a queue setup. So these are the type of things, or you may need to specify the settings for your Docker, CPU, and memory consumption. So these are the type of things that you specify in an application config file. It clearly defines to you at the high level what this microservice is all about. At the same time, the scripts that deploy your microservice can utilize this application config and create those resources or update those resources at the time of deploying that microservice. The important thing is that the data is stored in a single config file. It's not hard-coded in the deployment scripts. It's not hard-coded in your microservice. It's sitting in a config file that your service may use, and at the same time the scripts that deploy your microservice may use. So number 4 is API dependencies. Whether you have direct API dependencies or whether you use pub/sub approach between microservice interacting with another microservice, you clearly need to define what these dependencies are. So you need to explicitly think about these dependencies. Yes, my microservice or my API may call your API. My microservice may publish a message into a topic, and then you subscribe to a topic and you consume those messages. But you clearly need to think about these dependencies. And while you're designing the system, it is good to note down these dependencies and constantly remind yourself if it's smooth, if it's easily maintainable. Number 5. Number 5 is about API dependency analysis tool. So what is this? This is connected to the number 4 I talked about. As you're designing, you're thinking about the dependencies between microservices, but now as you have more microservices and more families of microservices built, you really need some automated way. So that's where you can develop an API dependency tool that will scan your environment wherever you deploy. Let's assume you deploy your microservices into a dev environment. Now there should be a tool that can scan all the settings, all the config tables, and all the config files, and paint a picture of these dependencies. At least generate a dashboard page in HTML format where you can look at what service A is dependent on all these services and also consumed by all these services. If you had that even in the text version, it could help teams do better impact analysis in the future and paint the overall picture. But at the same time, you can use that data to generate dynamically, automatically generate a diagram of dependencies. There's all kinds of tools that you can use where you plug in this, let's say, dependency analysis data into some library that can generate a nice graphical diagram for you, or very cool diagram for you. So that's all I wanted to cover today. So that's 5 items out of 25 items needed to achieve enterprise level of microservices. As you can see, I'm parked somewhere. I had to find a parking lot to talk about these items because I couldn't look at my notes and drive. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe if you like my videos. Click that thumbs up button. I'll see you in the next episode. Keep geeking out.